Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one.
My, female 39, stepdaughter Vic, female 25, and I recently had a very bad Facebook argument. Back in summer 2017, before I began a relationship with my now stepdaughter's father, Vic and my biological son Nix, male 22, had a short fling. Vic broke things off with him because things were going too fast. But Nix was heartbroken and has never dated since then. In 2020, I met Vic's father, male 55, NATO, through work. Mind you, I was aware he was Vic's father and was willing to deal with any possible consequences. Example, angry son, that our relationship may have, all because I liked NATO. Since 2020, I've married NATO, and now we and my son live together. Vic lives out of state, so fortunately she and Nix haven't had to interact much. Lately, Vic drove to my home because she had just been laid off her job, after she had apparently made a borderline illegal mistake or such. She arrived at the front door at 9 p.m. and essentially decided she was just going to stay here for a few weeks. Now, the house I live in was formerly hers, NATO's, and his first wife's, but she hadn't lived here since before I and Nix moved in. I told her she had no permission to come inside, especially with no notice beforehand. I left her out in the rain, to avoid upsetting my son upon seeing her. And after about 15 minutes, she finally gave up screaming and knocking at the door and drove ours home. Now, that night, NATO coincidentally had a scheduled emergency appointment with a coworker at a motel, and the meeting ended up lasting till past 11 p.m. Still don't know what it was about. So he wasn't there when Vic was at the door. The next morning, once he was home, NATO received a text from Vic and found out about the whole situation and told me I should have let Vic stay. Then, to my shock, NATO literally forced me to apologize to Vic over Facebook. I felt I had nothing to apologize for. Instead of apologizing, I berated Vic for how she had essentially been a homewrecker by breaking up with Nix. And I told her I would never accept her as my stepdaughter, and that was the real reason I didn't let her in. She was all duck you in her response back, but said she got her job back. She didn't, and didn't want to see me ever again. All I did was try to protect my son's feelings by keeping him away from his ex as much as possible. But I feel I may have crossed the line by calling her a homewrecker, when she and my son never had S, whereas her father and I are married. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You left her sitting out in the rain, for duck's sake. That right there is an a-hole move. Yeah, you and your son live there now, but it is her father's house. All because your son had a fling with her? This has got to be a joke. You know your son is involved with a girl. She eventually breaks his heart. You marry her father. She shows up to her childhood home. You don't let her in, leave her standing in the rain, and make her drive home. You don't apologize. You publicly berate her. Accuse her of being a homewrecker when she's wrecked no home, as your son was not married at the time. And you want to know if you're the a-hole? You're the a-hole 1000%. Your disposition is very off-putting and extremely unpleasant to say the least. I can't figure out how you were protecting your son's feelings when you turned the girl who broke his heart into his stepsister. What made you think they would never see each other again? This is clearly a joke. It has to be. You're the a-hole. She isn't a homewrecker. You moved into her childhood home and then denied her entry when she was going through a rough time and literally left her in the rain. You made the knowing decision to date and marry her father, knowing Vic's history with your son. That is a choice that you made and not her. Yet you're trying to hold her accountable. You definitely did owe her an apology. You said that you would be willing to deal with any consequences in getting with her dad, but then you force her to deal with those consequences so you don't have to. You're the a-hole. My current wife was my affair partner when I was married to my first wife, Sarah. Sarah and I split 6 years ago when she discovered my infidelity, and I moved my wife in. Honestly, too soon, but I didn't want to live alone. I do have remorse over what I did to Sarah. She got remarried a couple years ago, and I wish her the best. My wife hates Sarah because she feels that she has an attitude with her, which I don't see, but maybe I'm just blind. Sarah and my wife were very close before the affair, and my wife feels that Sarah thought she was better than her because of her education and career. That does kind of sound like Sarah, so I will give my wife the benefit of the doubt. When Sarah moved out, she left a lot of stuff. We didn't discuss it, but I didn't have a problem with her coming back for it. The issue is, when my wife moved in, she wouldn't let Sarah come back. I did give Sarah some heirloom jewelry that my wife tried to steal, but Sarah did not seem to care about the clothes. My wife caused drama over it, and Sarah makes very good money and said she would buy more clothes. It wasn't worth it. Over the years, my wife has worn Sarah's clothes, which I find odd. I can somewhat see the higher-end stuff, but seeing my wife hanging out in Sarah's pajamas freaks me out a bit. A couple of years ago, we traveled for my daughter's destination wedding, and my wife wore a bikini in front of Sarah that had been bought for Sarah. Sarah's new husband already thinks I'm a joke and made some comments, and it was humiliating. My son got married last weekend, and my wife was going to wear a dress Sarah had left behind, which she had never worn. It is an expensive dress, and my wife swears she just likes it, but I asked her to save it for an event Sarah won't be at. Nope, she insisted on wearing it to the wedding. So the weekend before the wedding, I took the dress to a donation center. When my wife realized what I had done, she broke down crying and said she didn't have anything to wear, which isn't true, but I offered to take her shopping. She refused and was very upset the day of the wedding and told me that I humiliated her because Sarah always looks perfect and she had to throw her look together last minute. You're the a-hole because of how you treated and keep treating Sarah, and you deserve everything coming your way from your drama-prone wife, who's pulling all these stunts on purpose to torture her. My wife feels like Sarah has an attitude around her. Well, yeah, no crap, Sherlock. People are usually pretty salty about their cheating partners and their willing affair partners. OP isn't quite the most oblivious person I've ever heard of, but he's definitely up there. The only sensible thing he seems to have done is donating that dress and preventing further misery for poor Sarah. That's literally the only non-a-hole thing in this entire post. You're the a-hole for letting your affair partner turned wife wear any of your wife's clothing. She's doing it to upset her, and you know it. Everyone sucks here. Well, I mean, you are an a-hole, but the one right thing you did was donate that dress. What your wife is doing is profoundly creepy, and honestly, you are a joke to let that happen. This is some creepy horror movie behavior from your wife. I can't believe you let her actually steal clothes from your ex, and she actually wears the clothes at events that your wife will see it. This is the most embarrassing thing I've ever heard of. Both you and your current wife are most likely the laughingstock at any event you arrive at because of this. It doesn't matter how good your wife looks in your ex's clothes. Everyone is laughing at her, and you. Be an adult and act like a normal person, and take some responsibility. You let your now wife bar your ex from getting her belongings. You allowed this behavior. I get why people think you and your current wife are a joke. Honestly, that's the best anyone could think about this absolutely pathetic behavior. Honestly, you saved your wife from being embarrassed, because I'm sure everyone who knew would be laughing at her. Why is your wife so obsessed with being your ex? Not looking better than. Why is she cosplaying as your ex, publicly? Pack up your ex-wife's stuff, all of it, and give it to your ex, your kids, or donate it. I mean, I'm only saying not the a-hole because your wife is beyond all bounds of an a-hole, but you are almost as bad for enabling this. Male 18, father died a year ago, leaving his house to me and my half-sister, Amara, female 27. The house is worth roughly $425K, though that is based on an appraisal done right after Dad died, and the way that house prices have gone up, it's probably more now. Amara and her kids, she has 3, were living in the house with Dad when he died, and she just kept on living there ever since. She has been the one paying the property taxes and everything else. By default, as Dad's only child of legal age, Amara was the one in charge of my dad's estate. Amara did split the money Dad had in the bank and gave me some of Dad's things. I graduated high school this year and am looking forward to going to college. I was accepted into a great school, but it is pretty expensive. I'm looking at having to borrow about $35 to $40K a year to go, which seems stupid when you think about the fact I technically have about $212K coming. I've told Amara that I want her to either sell the house or pay me out my half. Amara says that she cannot afford to buy me out and that without Dad's house, she wouldn't have a place to live. I pointed out that if I got over $200K, so would she. She said that she has an outstanding judgment against her, that if she got cash, most of it would be taken. I remember my aunt telling me that Amara had gotten into trouble, accident while driving without a license or insurance. Supposedly, they can't make her sell the house, but if she sells, they would take the money. I don't know how this stuff works, but my best friend's dad is a lawyer, and he says that sounds right. He even offered to get me in touch with a law school friend that practices in the state where the house is located. I found out that I would have to sue to force the sale, which would mean lawyer fees and court costs. I told Amara that I would force the sale. She said that I am making her and her kids, Dad's grandkids, homeless. She doesn't make much money, and that even with child support, they couldn't find a place. I told her I was doing it. She was crying on the phone about how I was ruining her kids' lives. She got my aunt involved, who is telling me I am a horrible person for putting money above family. I should also say that Amara and I aren't close at all. I'm the result of an affair our dad had, and I lived on the other side of the country. I rarely saw Dad or Amara. All I know is I worked my butt off to get into my dream school, and I don't want to spend the next 20 years in debt to pay for it. Does that make me an a-hole? Bear in mind, if your sister has been paying for upkeep, taxes, etc., that money will be deducted from your share of the sale. You seem to think that you're entitled to 50% of the sale of a house you've done nothing to contribute to, maintain, or keep up. That is not how the law works. So take your $212K, subtract taxes, upkeep, improvements, subtract your attorney's fees, and get a more realistic picture of how much money you're going to get. Also, just for your attitude, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole just based on your attitude. I assume you planned on going to your dream school before your dad passed. What was your plan prior to your dad's passing? I think a lot of people are overlooking the fact that you rarely saw your dad. Amara was living with him and was probably with him during his last moments. Did it occur to you that she's more attached to the house than just needing a place to stay? Based on her trying to reason with you that way, it sounds like you probably don't care about sentimentality and preserving the place your dad lived at, as you were rarely there anyways. It's so weird to me that you're using this as a money-grabbing opportunity. To me, it seems like you don't care about these people at all and just see an opportunity that benefits you at the cost of someone else's life. How is this OP's fault? OP is 18 now, so a year ago when his dad died, he was 17. The dad should have been the one making the effort to meet him. He didn't spend any time in that house. Why are you expecting him to be sentimental about it? He has some of his dad's belongings. The fact is, the dad left the house to both OP and his half-sister, and only the half-sister is getting her full share. They need to come to a settlement, but calling an 18-year-old out for having an attitude over wanting their share of the inheritance is so wrong. I see below that you're calling OP spiteful and selfish for wanting his inheritance to secure his education and future. And Amara grabbing the whole inheritance, including OP's share, is not selfish and spiteful? You've built up a lovely picture of a suffering half-sister who dedicated her life to looking after their father, but that's not the case at all. She moved in with the father because she broke up with her boyfriend and had no place to go. She made poor choices and therefore can't rent. Now she wants OP to give up his education and future because she can't afford to give him his share of their father's property. There is one selfish person here, but it isn't OP. My father and my mother divorced because my mom cheated, and it was hard on me growing up. But I forgave her. But for a while, I blamed Dad for breaking up the family. My mother was there for me, so was my bio dad. He would always take me places and make me feel like I was the princess in his life. My mother married about 6 months later, and my stepdad did the same thing my bio dad did, and I felt loved by all three. My bio dad got married, and I still did stuff with him, but it didn't feel the same. It felt like I was sharing my dad. My stepdad treated me like I was the only girl in the world, and it felt good. Soon I hated being with my bio dad because I had to share him, and I just stopped wanting to visit, but he still treated me good and even bought me a car for my 16th birthday. I'm getting married soon, and I gave my bio dad an invite, and he said he couldn't make it because he has to work and he's sorry. I snapped, calling him a failure and a bad parent. My dad yelled at me for the first time and said, "You are a sad excuse for a daughter. Your mom cheated and you've blamed me your whole life and put her on a pedestal. Sometimes I wish I had a son." I started crying and went home. My mom heard the story and said I'm right. But my grandmother said your father is right. Your mother is a part of the blame for the divorce. Now I feel bad. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. A massive a-hole, actually. Your dad found a new wife, and they wanted to start their life together. That doesn't make you any less of his daughter. From the info you've given, he hasn't treated you any differently than before, and doesn't put his new wife's needs before yours. You say you're upset because you don't want to share your dad, but you wouldn't have to if your mom hadn't cheated in the first place. I agree with him. It is incredibly sad that you put your mother on a pedestal when she is the one who broke up your family. Your dad is trying to move on and find happiness with another woman, and you're upset at him over it because of your own childish and selfish reasons. Sure, it sucks that he can't attend your wedding, but that doesn't make him a failure, nor a bad parent. So, your mom cheats on your dad, and you blame your dad for breaking up the family? Okay. Then your dad gets remarried, and you blame him for not staying single, even though it was totally fine when your cheating mom got married. And you only value your father because he gave you a car. You're kind of awful, and you're the a-hole. So, your mother cheats, yet you blame your dad. And then your mom's allowed to get remarried, but your dad's not? That must be awful for him to first be cheated on, and then have his child take the cheater's side. You're the a-hole. My immediate family consists of me, 27 male, my wife, 29 female, and our son, 8 male. We rely solely on my income to make ends meet, and while it is sufficient for our own needs, we don't have any extra money to spare. My wife's older sister, 31 female, is going through financial difficulties due to her poor choice in a partner. Her husband was incarcerated for theft while she was pregnant with their first child. Out of sympathy, we assisted her with everything and paid for her pregnancy-related expenses. However, as soon as her husband was released, she became pregnant again. Her husband is lazy and only works a few days per month, sometimes going for months without any employment. Given their situation, I ended up financially supporting her second pregnancy as well. On both occasions, we also gifted her some money. Shortly after giving birth to her second child, she became pregnant again with a third baby. At this time, my family was undergoing significant adjustments in our own lives, which involved substantial expenses. During her pregnancy, she repeatedly asked for loans that she never repaid, but we anticipated this and didn't plan on asking for the money back. When the expected date of her child's first birth arrived, we visited the hospital and provided a monetary gift as we always had done. After the baby was born, the hospital expenses had to be paid, and the sister's husband, 38 male, and his family looked to me when the bill arrived. I remained silent, and he handed me the bill. I then explained that I couldn't cover the hospital expenses this time. I told him we had never agreed on it in the first place. Additionally, I pointed out that the amount we had gifted her was roughly the same as the hospital bill, so it should have covered it. The husband became angry and started speaking negatively about me. He called me an a-hole for not paying. His family members also appeared angry and openly criticized both me and my wife. I responded by saying that they cannot expect me to pay when we didn't agree upon it beforehand. Am I the a-hole? Nothing's stopping those family members from helping. Let's be honest. Your sister-in-law and her husband make horrible choices. These choices are not your responsibility to pay for. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but you should stop enabling your sister. It must be super difficult to see her in this situation, but as long as you provide financial support, she has no reason to change her situation. Not the a-hole. No one is entitled to your money, but you done it to yourself in all honesty. Stop supporting them. If they struggle, that's their own faults because there's 2 adults in that home. Also, tell his family to pay the damn bill before they even comment on you. When the virus hit, my husband and I asked my son, 25 male, and his girlfriend, 24 female, to stay with us and our daughter, 21 female, as they both had lost their jobs due to the virus. Son readily agreed, but daughter-in-law was more hesitant and considered moving to another country to stay with her mother. We insisted they both stay with us, as we didn't know how travel would work at the time, but she still seemed hesitant. However, they did end up moving in. Everyone had always gotten along quite well, so we had no reason to think things would be different. Unfortunately, this was not the case. Within a few days, I noticed massive amounts of food and snacks disappearing very quickly, e.g., several gallons of ice cream or an entire Costco-sized box of snacks would all be finished off in one night. Cost isn't an issue. The problem was the food wasn't available when it was expected to be. It's all good. My son doesn't like, and my daughter has never eaten like that, so it must be daughter-in-law. I didn't want to confront her, and I'm not sure how she manages to eat so much and stay extremely skinny. During the day, she's a very picky eater, and either makes her own or picks at what I cook. Then I notice her staying up late into the night, eating. She did often replace the food, but then she'll eat the replacement food too. And my daughter, who is still finishing classes online, found it extremely disruptive, especially since she has had eating disorders in the past, and constantly having no access to certain snacks made me worried she would relapse. I asked her gently if she would move out, but that if she wanted to move to a nearby apartment, she was still welcome to come by any time. She agreed to move out, but my son informed me that she was really panicked because she didn't really have anywhere to go. As they moved a couple states to stay with us, and since she can't travel to her parents' country right now and doesn't have much money to find a place due to being unemployed, she was staying in an Airbnb while trying to figure things out. I do feel badly, as she would have been able to stay with her family if I had not insisted so strongly that she stay with us. But her food behavior is unprecedented, and I have to protect my daughter. Am I the a-hole for kicking her out and making her temporarily homeless? You're the a-hole. You really admit that you insisted they both stay with you. You admit you can afford the extra food, but you kick this woman out, a woman who cannot go back to her own country and who got pressured by you to move states away from where her and her son were initially, over her overeating? You're the a-hole. You really went 0 to 60 on this one. You saw she was eating your food, and immediately your reaction is to kick her out? I get that you're worried about your daughter, but you're also making some assumptions there as well, with the possibility of her relapsing as a result of daughter-in-law eating too many of the snacks. It sounds like you didn't even attempt to have a conversation with daughter-in-law. It also really sucks that you and your husband went out of your way to convince her to stay with you during the virus, when she could have stayed with her mother before things got crazy. And here you are throwing her out on the street. Her behavior sounds a little annoying, but not worthy of this. You seem kinda heartless, to be honest. You're the a-hole. You pretty much forced this girl to come live with you, and now because she was eating too much food, you're kicking her out? There's no, let's talk about it and see why she's eating too much. Your solution is to just kick her out. You're a rude and a-hole person. You care about your daughter and her health problem, but not another person? I've been raised by a single mother. My mom has always told me Dad's not in the picture, and she'd explain when I'm older. A few years ago, my mom said she'd had an affair with a married man. She got pregnant, and she had no regrets about having me. But the man wanted nothing to do with us, and things quickly turned sour between them. He would pay child support money, not court-ordered, because he did not want to go to court, but of his own volition, and that was it. This year, I found out who my father is. My mom, who has trouble with math, wanted help with her taxes, and I found out about monthly checks from a man in her finances. I asked if he's my father, and she said yes, but she didn't want to talk about him. I looked him up later, and he's a conservative politician in this state. I wanted to talk more with my mom and process things, but she really didn't want to talk. So I talked to my friends and told them who he is. And one night my friend was having a party, and we'd gotten beer, and we were a little tipsy and decided to call my dad. Found his office number online, and we went to voicemail. I just kinda didn't know what to say, so I was like, "Hi, I'm your daughter. My mom is Jane Smith. I want to talk. Call me at number." Never got a response. My mom found out I did that, calling his office. Apparently his staff did get my message, and he was angry enough to call my mom. And I told her I'd told my friends. Anyway, she was mad at me for doing something stupid that might lose me financial support till I'm 18. I'm 17 now, I have a job, and for not asking her before running my mouth at school. I told her I was sorry if I'd said or done anything that was embarrassing to her by talking about my parentage at work, but I wasn't sorry if I made my dad feel some sort of way, and that I honestly wanted to call back now that I knew I was getting through. I wanted to ask him firsthand how he's okay walking away from a baby while also building a career on family values. I am his blood family and not ashamed to say it to anyone who asks. If he wants to look like he values his family and his political career, he should start by valuing his damn family. My mom really doesn't want me to push it. She says I'm too young to understand the nuances. He did right by us by paying for my upbringing. Am I the a-hole for how I feel about it? Not the a-hole. If he's a conservative, married politician, and he didn't want a child he fathered with another woman calling his office, where his entire staff could find out, he should have kept it in his pants. Not the a-hole for how you feel about it, but you're the a-hole for getting drunk and calling his office. Not to mention telling people X is my father, when your mom made it clear he did not want to be in the picture. Everyone sucks here besides your mom. Your father has provided child support your entire life. That's all he has to do as half of the couple who created you. Some people don't want to be parents, and they shouldn't be judged for that. Your mom chose to keep you. That was her choice. Do you really think growing up with a father who clearly didn't want to be your parent would have been a better alternative? So he's a hypocrite. So what? Your mom is the one who wanted a child, and your father made sure you were financially supported. It sounds like they had an agreement. You're not entitled to anything more just because you're related by blood. Your mom is right. There are nuances. And neither acting like a bratty teenager nor drunk dialing his office makes you look good either. My wife and I got married about a year ago, and she took my last name. Let's say it's Smith, and my wife's maiden name will be Johnson. So we are the Smiths, and we recently had a son too. So let me preface this with the fact that I love my grandmother-in-law. She is a wonderful woman who loves her family to the moon and back. But she only had sons, so she doesn't know what it's like to not have your family name move on. All of her sons are married to women who are now Johnsons. All of her grandkids are Johnsons. She's got this Johnson pride, which is great. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your large family. The problem is that she doesn't seem to respect the family names of her daughter-in-laws. My mother-in-law once told me a story about how Grandma Johnson got super offended by my mother-in-law's mother. Let's call them Butler, saying my wife's personality as a child was from the Butler family. It didn't sit well with Grandma Johnson, who said, "No, she's a Johnson through and through. You can tell." Grandma Butler, bless her heart, never challenged this and would just let Grandma Johnson have her way, and according to my mother-in-law, it happened more than often, and with the other daughter-in-laws as well. So now that my wife and I have our little family starting, we bought a home, and my grandmother-in-law got us a housewarming present. The present was a big wooden sign that says, "Bless this Johnson house." It's a very thoughtful gift, but my house isn't a Johnson house, it's a Smith house. My kid's last name is Smith, and he's a member of the Smith family, so I don't want this sign hanging in my house. The other day, my wife's uncle came to visit. He knew my grandmother-in-law had gotten us the sign, and when he didn't see it up, he said it was disrespectful to her. I told him exactly what I wrote in the paragraph above, and asked how he'd react if his wife's mom tried hanging up a similar sign with her last name on it. He said that's different because of how storied and strong his family ties are, and that being a Johnson is more than surname, it's an honor. I told him I'm honored to be a part of the Johnson family, but we are the Smiths. This is a Smith household. My wife is a Smith. My son is a Smith. That's who we are, and we're proud to be Smiths. My wife is mostly on my side, but has asked if we could put it up when Grandma Johnson visited, to appease her. My mother-in-law is 100% on my side, and wants me to keep it down even when Grandma Johnson comes for a visit. She's even told him to just throw it out. So am I the a-hole for straight up refusing to put this sign up? Not the a-hole. That's just weird to be so set on a name, especially since she married into her name and should understand the want to take your spouse's name. Wouldn't hang it up. Not the a-hole. Both you and your grandmother-in-law are weirdly into surnames, but you should decorate your house the way you want. If neither you nor your wife want to have the sign up all the time, it's silly to put it up just for Grandma, especially because it sounds like your busybody uncle-in-law will tell her you don't have it up all the time anyway. Not the a-hole. I wouldn't hang it either. It's not disrespectful. It's just not your family name. It's not even your wife's anymore. This is your family now. That doesn't negate her family or history or anything. Grandma should have gotten a different gift. I, 30 female, have been with my husband, 35 male, 3 years. We have an 8-month-old baby together. My husband has an ex-wife and 2 children together, ages 8 and 13. We get every other week. My husband is civil with his ex-wife, even though they don't always get along. His ex recently was in a horrible car accident with multiple serious injuries. She had multiple surgeries and is now home, but she'd need care for the next few months and rides to physical therapy once she starts that. I'm a CNA, and my husband is ICU doctor, but specifies with wounds. After a long talk, we decided it'd be best for her to stay with us, since she had no family or friends, and her insurance didn't cover an in-home nurse, and we know how to medically care for her. I'll admit, I've never gotten along with my husband's ex, but I understand that this is not the time for petty arguments and drama, and that she needed cared for, which is what I was good at. I even had requested less hours and adjusted my schedule to make sure my husband or I could be home with her and the kids always. I have more leniency with my job, so I'm her main caregiver the past few days, and I help her bathe and get dressed. My husband handles the less invasive things. I was doing the laundry, which my husband has been doing for her, and grabbed some of her clothes and put them in. When she found this out, she was super upset and said I should have asked and I shouldn't be touching her belongings. I told her that she lets me bathe her, but I can't wash her clothes. She said no, and that it was super rude of me to come into her space and grab her laundry, and that I should understand boundaries. I told her that's why she was staying in my house, so we could care for her. She called me a bee, and that I only agreed to take care of her so I'd look like a good person and not to touch her stuff again. I brought this up to my husband, and he backed me up and said that's what she was here for us to take care of her. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I'd love it if you did my laundry for free. It sounds like she's dealing with resentment, but keep in mind that this is probably very difficult for her. If you and your husband have a good functioning relationship, it's probably very hard for her to watch that, especially while disabled and being in a position where her replacement is now taking care of her. That would probably be very difficult for most people. Most people, when they are around their exes and their partners, put all of their shields up, and she's in a position where she can't. She literally has to be in front of you naked. Not the a-hole. I imagine she's feeling bitter and small, needing to be cared for by you and her ex. You're being super practical, helpful about this, given the circumstances. Not the a-hole. I want to start off with, in no way should she have escalated the situation, or that it required her to get so heated. But it might be coming from a place of control. Everything as of right now is out of her control, especially considering bathing herself, which is very intimate. I think she's definitely in the wrong with the way she reacted, but I can understand why she might want that little bit of control of wanting you to ask first. I personally wash my items very specifically, so I would also be upset, not to mention losing all other control in my life. I don't think you were in the wrong by any means for wanting to help, but maybe try to see it from that side of things.